the regular board meeting on April 22nd, 2021. It is now 6:31 p.m. The state of Illinois continues to operate under disaster declaration related to the COVID-19 worldwide pandemic. The health department continues to advise the community to practice social distancing, wear face masks, and avoid unnecessary contact with others. Based on the current public health concerns, I, Sarah Spivey's head of the public body, do not believe it is either practical or prudent to hold an in-person meeting of the Board of Education on April 22nd, 2021. Further believe that it is neither practical nor prudent for the public to be present at the public body's regular meeting location. We will continue to hold a remote meeting with updated practices to comply with Public Act 101-640 that was signed by Governor Christopher on June 12th of 2020. So since the meeting cannot be conducted at the regular physical location due to this health crisis, alternative arrangements have been made to allow any interested member of the public to hear all discussion, testimony, and roll call votes. We have a mechanism for submitting public comment via email, and we are streaming currently on YouTube as well as on our website. Yeah, would you please call the roll?
Yes. Mr. Kotsky?
Here.
Dr. Moore? Mr. Barron?
Here.
Mr. Isley? Mr. Martieri?
Here.
Ms. Harris?
Here.
Mr. Isley?
I think he lost his connection. I don't see him anymore.
Okay. And Ms. Dixon Spivey?
Here.
Thank you.
Seeing a quorum of the, sorry, I moved to enter closed session. For the purpose of discussing the appointment, employment, compensation, discipline, performance, or dismissal of specific employees of the district, or legal counsel for the district, and independent contractors and specific volunteers, including hearing testimony on a complaint lodged against an employee or against legal counsel for the district to determine its validity. Litigation on an action against affecting on behalf of the particular district has been filed and is pending before a court or administrative tribunal, or when the district finds that an action is probable or imminent, in which case the basis for the finding should be recorded and entered into the closed meeting minutes. Is there a second?
Second.
Gail, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Barron?
Yes.
Mr. Isley?
Yeah, I see you. Mr. Isley, can you hear us?
Mr. Martieri?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Kopsky?
Yes.
Mr. Isley? Ms. Dixon Spivey?
Yes.
Dr. Moore is present.
Oh, and Dr. Moore?
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, we will be back for the open portion of our meeting at 7:30. Everybody else, please go to the link that is in your email for closed session. Thank you.
So the only people who need to stay are Roxanne and Greg.
Title, yep, title of the session. Yep. Also not muted.
Where's Falcon and the Winter Soldier?
Because if they're canceled, I just need like one. I'm done. Turn it off. Oh, God. It's me?
Today, I am happy to recognize our winners for April in two categories. The first is Teacher of the Month, and the second is Employee of the Month. So first, I would like to congratulate Megan Kennedy. She was selected as Teacher of the Month, and she's in our special ed department and the site program. Here is what people who submitted her nominations had to say about her. I love her passion for students. Ms. Kennedy teaches her students to keep a yes, I can positive attitude. She really reinforces that there are no limits to your goals, no matter how big or small, the sky's the limit. During this pandemic, Megan has found unique ways to help every student while they're at home, working on important life skills like cooking, folding laundry, cleaning, addressing envelopes for mailing letters or bills. She also took advantage of opportunities for students to meet the local mayoral and village president candidates leading up to the recent election, makes fitness and wellness a life skill priority, and shows the importance of the individual with birthday celebrations for each student, showcasing their skills, preferences, and abilities. Not only is she an excellent teacher, but she also provides families with the tools and resources needed to prepare to transition out of high school and into the adult services and workforce world. So Megan, thank you so much for your contribution and for your work on behalf of our students. We do have a certificate which we're going to show on the screen. Momentarily. It's Megan's certificate.
And Megan.
And Megan is here. Megan, would you like to say a few words?
I would. Thank you all so much. I am so honored to receive this award. This is my Oscar moment. There are so many people I would like to thank. I would like to say thank you to all those who make our community integrated transition education site program a tremendous success. First, thank you to the teaching assistants, therapists, and our program chair. The site program is exceptional because of your dedicated efforts. I'd also like to thank the River Forest Community Center and the many local businesses that support the site program by hiring our students and giving them opportunities for inclusion and independence. Last but not least, I'd like to give a special thanks to the site students and their families. They're truly the inspiration for my work, and I thank all of you for this honor today.
And we thank you wholeheartedly, especially during this pandemic. It has not been easy. So thank you so much for your work.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Our second employee this evening is Olivia Mraz, and she is a substitute and lead coordinator. And here is what people who submitted her nominations had to say about Olivia. Olivia deserves recognition for all the work she's put in to change the way that we operate during the pandemic. She's really had to step it up, all while maintaining her normal duties along with new ones. She's made these transitions fluid. She respects all of the varying needs for the staff and faculty, and her communications and knowledge and professionalism are deeply appreciated. And here we have Ms. Mraz's certificate. Do we have Olivia with us this evening?
Olivia couldn't be here tonight, but as her supervisor, I would like to say a few words.
Yeah.
Olivia has always gone above and beyond her job. She's done an excellent work with securing subs and making sure that we have adequate coverage. But this year, she really stepped up to the plate when we had to hire classroom monitors to allow for teachers who have remote work accommodations to teach from home. And so she's done an excellent job and handled everything with such grace and poise, and I personally appreciate it very much. Thank you.
It's wonderful, especially I'm sure we had a lot of unusual circumstances over the past school year. So Olivia, thank you so much, and we will be mailing certificates to your homes. Or you'll be here for this, actually, she didn't speak on the operation of that, so I'm not sure. But they're here for you. So our next item this evening is public comments. Gail, do we have any public comments?
Yes, you do.
Thank you.
From Tim Melman. Hello, my name is Tim and I'm a junior at OPRF. During the committee of the whole meeting on April 8th, several board members expressed an interest in creating a student advisory board to the Board of Education in which students can offer the board input on topics discussed during board meetings. I think this is a fantastic idea. Allowing students to give more direct feedback will help ensure that the board addresses the concerns of the students and allow us to have voices on the issues that we currently don't, but that impact us the most, e.g. advisory, potential changes to bell schedules, etc. I would encourage the board to consider taking and forming a student advisory committee of some sort that meets regularly to address the topics being discussed at board meetings, perhaps monthly meetings, or on the Tuesday or Wednesday prior to board meetings on Thursday. As a student myself, I would love to join this type of committee. And since next year will be my last year, I encourage the board to organize this prior to the start of the 21-22 school year, enabling the maximum time for graduating students to offer their support. The next one is from Micah Greenberg. It's always anxiety provoking when the high holidays approach. I never know whether they would be accommodating, and if so, how much. This causes me to focus more on worrying about school than focusing on the holiday, which defeats the point of the holiday. From Eva Spangler, every year Jewish students are forced to choose between religion and school. Having school on the Jewish holidays, Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, is similar to making Christian students go to school on Christmas and Easter. On these holidays, Jewish students spend time with their family, fast, and go to services all day. Yet OPRF students must decide to either miss a religious holiday or miss a math lesson. Christian students never have to make a difficult decision that students in a religious minority have to make every year. Missing school and making up work for 7 separate classes is very disruptive to a student. Many neighboring schools, such as the River Forest schools and Evanston Township High School, have taken a compassionate and a fair approach to the Jewish holidays and given days off. Furthermore, it is a double standard to give an institute day for Good Friday and not on any Jewish holidays. Not only is it unfair, it goes against OPR's values of equity for all. I implore you all to consider changing the calendar in order to allow everyone, regardless of religion, to succeed. From Joe Klein, OPRF should take into account the Jewish high holy days when planning the school calendar. Having to choose between attending a religious service on the most holy day of the year or going to school so as not to miss work should not be a choice Jewish students have to make. From Madeline Nyewolner, minority students, cultures, religions, and backgrounds should be celebrated and respected. The calendar for the next school year doesn't include Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, and this continues to be an issue for Jewish students in the building. These 2 holidays are the holiest in the Jewish year and have a lot of importance to students, even those that aren't as religious as others. It is a way for the community to join together and appreciate one another. Having these days off would mean students wouldn't have to choose between their education and their beliefs history. Anya Sachs, this comment concerns the absence of days from school during the Jewish high holidays of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Every year when the high holidays roll around, I have an argument with my parents about whether I should attend school or go to our temple services. My parents have always found services incredibly important and valuable, and over time, attending service has become very important to me. Nevertheless, every year the same argument takes place. Every year I find myself having to choose between my religion and my education. In high school, missing even one day of class can result in being behind and confused on the subject you're learning about. For me and many of my Jewish friends, the high holidays consist of going to services during the day, then immediately coming home and scrambling to complete all schoolwork that was missed along with the homework that has been assigned. We should not have to choose between religion and education, especially on the holiest days of the year. One should not come at the cost of the other. For the Jewish students at OPRF, having days off of school for these holidays would be incredibly beneficial and stress relieving, allowing us to practice our religion without impairing our education. From Nathan Melman, board members, I am writing to ask you that you incorporate one of the Jewish high holidays into the school calendar as a non-attendance day. This will go a long way to welcoming the Jewish community to District 200. District 90 already does this, and I can't emphasize enough the impact that this one small effort has had on how we regard the River Forest School District. There have been enough difficulties recently with OPRF scheduling required exams on the Jewish Sabbath. I hope you will give the serious consideration it deserves. Thank you in advance for your time and consideration. And that's all I have.
Thank you very much, Jill. All right, now we have a report from our student council board liaison, Megan Andrews.
Hi, everybody. I'm Maeve McAndrews, and I'm the student council board rep. I'm excited to be here tonight and just tell you all about some of the events we've been planning. There's a little recap from last meeting. We did host our cooking night and had about 22 staff and students participate. We just really want to thank Chef Peter Schonman from River Forest for helping us make that night such a success. Student Council has also been collecting cards over the past month that we will send to Brookdale Nursing Home at around the end of the month. We are hoping that these messages will just help cheer up the residents of the nursing home, since we understand that this past year must have been very hard for them. And currently, Student Council is hosting an Earth Day Clean Up the Community event. We are encouraging students to go around the Oak Park and River Forest community and pick up any trash that they see. We hope that students will clean up like the alleys, parks, and other areas outside their homes, or just if they would go around the school too, would be great. Just to make our community look as beautiful as possible. This event starts today and goes through till Sunday. And we are also asking that students send us pictures of them cleaning up trash as kind of like an incentive, so that they could be entered into a raffle to win like a cool prize, maybe some student council gear or something like that. Recently, students have reported to us that there has been some confusion surrounding the health certifications and saliva tests. Many students have told us that they will submit their saliva test on time, but then will receive emails telling them that they can't come into school for in-person learning. However, when they email the school or talk to the nurse, it says that their sample was received and it was negative for COVID. Students don't want to have to miss out of in-person learning, or especially after school sports where you have to have your green check mark shown before you can even enter, because their saliva samples aren't being counted. So I don't know what the communication is exactly between the saliva company and the health certification one, but hopefully we can just work out some of the bugs. Students were also wondering why parents are the only ones being sent the email for the health certification and why they can't fill it out themselves, because many parents leave early for work and maybe they forget to fill out their health certification, and that causes students to not be able to participate in their sport, or they'll have to call their parents like last minute, 5 minutes before their sport begins, just to fill it out. So is there any way to like send the link out to students each day, or just have like an ongoing link where they type in something with their like ID or something? We have also heard from many students that the saliva drop off time is still a little bit early at 1 p.m. Many students have told us that it's hard to get their saliva to a drop-off box if, like, say their days are Wednesday and Thursday and they didn't do it on Wednesday. Then if they have a class till 12:35, then they're like rushing to whatever box is nearest to their home, and it's a little bit like tight. So if there's any way that it could even be moved to like 1:30 or 2, just that extra 30 minutes to an hour is like so helpful. And currently Student Council is still coming up with some ideas for celebrating the seniors in the month of May, because we just really want to make sure that they know that the school appreciates them and that we see them, and we know this year has definitely been very hard for them. But otherwise, just thank you for giving me this time to speak on behalf of Student Council and the student body.
Thank you, May. Just very quickly, the reason that the students can't is because they're considered minors. And so by law, the parents have to fill out the survey unless the student is 18 years or older.
Okay, I can definitely tell that to Miss P then.
And the students can drop off 2 days in a row. They can even drop it off if they need to the night before, so that their drop is in on time. But they have 2 days they can do the saliva screen drop.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maeve.
Ms. Hamilton, the status on the FOIAs?
Yes, we had 2 FOIA requests and 1 is fulfilled.
Okay, thank you. Now for superintendent's announcements. I'm pleased to announce that 67 seniors have been awarded scholarships through the Oak Park and River Forest High School Scholarship Foundation, worth a total of $245,750. In addition, 4 students were named recipients of the Brian Davis Memorial Scholarship. As many of you know, Brian Davis worked for us and recently passed away. This scholarship was funded almost completely by donations from faculty and staff. Each student received $2,500. Senior Tiara Ogasawa has been named the 2021 Posse Foundation Scholar, an extremely prestigious award that provides full tuition scholarship to Trinity College. R.C. Davis and Kyla Perez earned national medals in the 2021 Scholastic Art and Writing Awards, placing them in the top 1% of more than 230,000 submissions. The Ernest Hemingway Foundation of Oak Park awarded junior Lee Working the 2021 Hemingway Foundation Scholarship for Excellence in Writing. The foundation also named Becky Green recipient of the Allen O. Baldwin Memorial Scholarship. 9 students have artwork on virtual display at the Illinois High School Art Exhibition at Central Illinois Exhibition. Congratulations to Luca Anderson, Anna Russell, Samantha Smith, Astrid Brunk, Kyler Robato, Zoe Hallermandes, Logan Pedraza, and Isabel Farron. In addition, for the 2nd year in a row, work by Lucas Anderson was selected for the National K-12 Ceramic Exhibition Foundation's annual show. And last but not least, over the course of more than 17 hours, Ezekiel Wells and Jackson Tanner walked 115,000 steps to raise more than $14,000 for local mental health organizations. And I just want to say that on April 15th, we welcomed back our students into 2 cohorts for more in-person learning. And it really feels good to have the movement in the building and the presence of our students. They generate energy. And I just want to say how glad it is to have them back, and they're doing a wonderful job. And that concludes the superintendent's announcement.
Great, thank you. Those are all very happy announcements. All right, so next we have action items. And our first action item of the evening, get this computer to work properly for me, is approval of the contract for the new superintendent. So I move to approve the contract between the new superintendent and the Board of Education for Oak Park North Forest High School District 200. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. So just to give a little bit of information about our search process. So this information was made part of our February board meeting. We had our search firm present this, but I want to just repeat it tonight. So there are no board duties more important than the hiring and the annual evaluation of our superintendent. While the board oversees finances and policy, our role is really not to oversee the day-to-day operations of the school. And that huge responsibility is solely with the superintendents. Historically, this district has used a search firm when looking for a new superintendent. This time was no different. We contracted with HYA, which is a superintendent search firm. This helps ensure that we can cast the widest net possible and brings additional transparency to the search process. It also allows more community voice. So it allows for more focus groups than we would be able to have, that we would have the capacity to hold on our own. It also ensures that the focus groups and survey questions are crafted by experts in superintendent hiring. Our search firm, HYA, talked to more than 200 stakeholders in 2 open forums, the Community Council, the Culture and Behavior Committee. They held 26 focus groups, 28 individual interviews, including all D200 board candidates for the April municipal election. And then they received surveys from an additional 1,859 people. And the breakdown on those surveys was 661 parents, 128 teachers and certified staff members, 51 support staff members, 13 administrators, 769 students, and 237 taxpayers with no students in the district. There were an additional 1,653 individual written comments. These surveys were pushed out through multiple communication channels and shared widely in the community. All this to say that this is the material that the search firm then used. They aggregated and analyzed all of the feedback and created our superintendent leadership profile for the district. So the leadership profile itself is not a creation of the board, it is a creation of the community. So this profile then becomes the yardstick against which candidates are measured. And we were given the top 5 qualities the community was seeking in the next superintendent. And again, this is in the February board packet if people want to go back and take a look at it. But so these are the five qualities. The next superintendent must understand and address the needs of a diverse population and address opportunity and achievement gaps. This is the overall #1 consensus rating for all groups. The next superintendent must foster, sustain, and strengthen a positive professional climate of mutual trust and respect. The next superintendent must sustain and strengthen a culture of belonging and connection for all students and staff. Must recruit, employ, and retain effective personnel. And must lead improvement in the rigor and relevance of curriculum and instruction. So over a dozen applications were received by our search firm, and the board went on to then interview several of those candidates. From there, we selected finalists who participated in additional stakeholder interviews. The clear consensus from the stakeholder interviews was support for the candidate that we've ultimately selected. I always do this. So, I got this, okay. Our next superintendent excels in all of the areas that I just identified in the leadership profile. This is apparent not only from the candidate's materials and interviews.
You got this.
It is also borne out by our lived experience. So it's my pleasure to announce Associate Superintendent Greg Johnson as the district next superintendent. I'm sorry, I get so static with our choice. We feel very confident. We've had the luxury of working with him for the past 4 years, and I know his work ethic and character firsthand. He has been an unwavering champion of racial equity and tackled the daunting and long overdue curriculum alignment process. He is thoughtful, kind, and humble with a quiet confidence. And there is no one works for the district who has more skin in the game than he does. He's not only a taxpayer, but his kids also go to school here. So I have every confidence that he will carry on the amazing work begun by Dr. Pruitt Adams at the district's next one. So I would invite any other board members who want to speak before we vote to do so now. And I will not call on you because I cannot see you. Yeah, just go ahead.
I'm ready.
Go for it.
Okay. I echo your comments that this is the most important duty, is hiring a superintendent, and I'm fortunate to have been able to have chosen Dr. Pruitt Adams and now Greg. For Dr. Pruitt Adams, a good leader hires and develops talent, and being able to hire and have one of your subordinates fill your shoes is a last sign of success as a leader. So thank you. Greg, this is a challenging role. Our needs are many. You've been able to step in, challenge things that needed to be challenged, and you've made an impact during your tenure in your current role. And I am very confident that you will make a lasting impact as you move into this role. You understand what you're getting yourself into. You have a solid grasp. You have a solid grasp of the issues in front of us, and you know our students. I've personally enjoyed getting to know you, in your current role, and I look forward to working with you as you drive our district towards exemplary status. So thank you.
Next board member.
I have something to say briefly. I am thrilled. I echo Tom's comments, and I'll cry if I start talking about Joy Lynn in this transition. So I won't say that, Tom, you said that perfectly. I would just also like to say to Greg, congratulations. It almost makes me wish I had a third term coming up. So we'll have to find other ways to check in with each other. But you, from day one, have been a valuable resource to our community and to our school. And I am glad that I feel that the bar you had to reach, to be honest, was a little bit higher than every other candidate because of what we already know. And you not only met that, but transcended it in ways that will continue to benefit our district. So thank you for agreeing to continue this work and put your own brand on it, and to be a part of this community in ways that, as Tom said, eyes wide open. So appreciate all that you've done and will continue to do.
I guess I'll jump in if that's all right. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Very good. So Greg, first, congratulations. I've known you for the 4 years you've been on board. I came on the board right as you were coming on staff. And I've known you as a fellow soccer dad, and also as a one-time emergency fill-in as a sports trivia teammate. And you handled both of those roles with aplomb. And but on a more serious and also a more relevant level, I've always admired your poise and your even demeanor. You've got a great temperament, and behind all of that public-facing stuff is just this great passion and insight and breadth of experience and humility of really being a great listener and seeking to learn and to understand how things can improve. And so I am confident the district is in great hands. And I would also echo the remarks about Dr. Pruitt-Adams for a solid hire of this fellow from Champaign. So not originally from Champaign, but most recently. So anyway, congrats to you, Greg, and to your family. And I look forward to reading about what happens next.
Yeah, and so I'll just weigh in real quick because I agree with everyone's comments, Greg. There's not a lot to add to those other than to say, you know, the discussion at the board level of the different candidates, you really came out at the top in every category. And our confidence in your capacity to take on the challenges that we know are going to confront the district over the next few years is exceedingly high. And we really look forward to working with you in a collaborative way to move our district forward. And, you know, Dr. Pruitt-Adams started laying this groundwork, and we feel like you are absolutely the right person to continue that work and move it to where it needs to go. And I should let you know, there are a number of highly qualified candidates that submitted their resumes for this position. And it was still, at the end of the day, at least for me, a relatively easy decision. So congratulations, Greg, you've really earned this.
So I'll just jump in. Can you hear me?
Yes, Greg.
Yeah, I'll just jump in. Congratulations, Greg. I just echo the comments of the rest of the board members. It was a great pool of candidates. I think, as Jackie said, you know, the bar was even a little bit higher for you because we knew your work, and we actually had to check ourselves a little bit along the way to make sure that we are taking that just other work wasn't new. But one of the things that really impressed me, and I'm really looking forward to, is, you know, the passion, but not just the passion, but the analytical and process oriented approach to evidence-based things that work and are successful. To me, that was, where you were really clearly head and shoulders above others and thinking about and looking forward to it from the sidelines, of course. But anyway, good luck and congratulations again.
Can I jump in now?
Yes, sure.
Greg, I just have to say, when I met you, I had just come on CCB and you had just started as well. And we ended up being in the same small group. And the way that you process, it's small group work for us, the way that you process the information then and how I've watched you move through these years, working with Dr. Pruitt-Adams and like under her leadership and all of what has been done, what everyone has said, yes, yes, and yes. And you bring, what Ralph said about there being great candidates, but you being at the top, that was every step of the way. I really appreciate how you have built relationships, hired, coordinated, cared for, and really worked on the culture of the building as well. So I am so very excited to have at least 2 more years with you. Who knows what's going to happen after that? But just very, very grateful and excited for your for you superintendency, and congratulations. Seriously, congratulations. So deserved.
Gail, if you would mind calling the roll, please.
Mr. Isley,
Yes.
Mr. Martieri,
Oh, okay.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Kopsky,
Yes.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Barron,
Yes.
and Ms. Dixon Spivey.
And a very emphatic yes. So thank you, Greg, and welcome. And now Dr. Pruitt-Adams, I believe, would like to say some nice things too.
Oh, wow. I knew. Okay, I've been in education a very long time, people know. And I'm a firm believer that there are some people who become educators and some people who are born to be educators. Greg Johnson is one of those people who was born to be an educator. I knew from his first interview that he was different in a way that he understood education and all that goes into it. I remember laughing at his first interview because he talked about coming in and being able to have time to do the research and get things done. And I just shook my head and laughed and said, okay, sure. But I will tell you, anything that I threw at him from day one, from program evaluations to curriculum restructuring to strategic plan, he didn't flinch. He immediately took it on and has worked diligently to move us forward. Watching him grow over the last 4 years has been one of the biggest pleasures in my entire professional career. I've been in administration over 30 years now. And while I have had a lot of great people, there are 2 that stand out for me. And that top 2, and Greg is one of those top 2. It is his time. He is ready. I want to thank the board because your trust in Greg and taking over in this school district means that you trust the work that we've done the last 5 years. And that means more to me than you possibly will ever know. And I know that Greg is going to take this school district to the next level. Greg, I am so very proud of you. And like I told you, if you ever need me, mean it. So, thank you so much, board.
Oh my goodness. I have been at board meetings in this school district for 4 years, and I have to say, so far, this is my favorite board item. Goodness, so much more than I expected, and I'm so grateful for all of your comments. I have a few words that I would like to say very briefly here. First, to the Board of Ed, thank you so much. I am absolutely honored that you have chosen me as the next superintendent of Oak Park River Forest High School. As you know, I have great regard for both the history and the possibilities of this high school. And over the past few years, as you've mentioned in several of the comments, under Dr. Pruitt-Adams' leadership, we have begun to take significant steps to serve the needs of all of our students in a host of different ways. And I'm absolutely honored to continue that work for all of our students in Oak Park and River Forest. So I want to take a moment here just to throw out a few thank yous, okay? Dr. Pruitt-Adams, for what you have started here and for what you have meant for me, both personally and professionally, I will forever hold you in the highest regard. And I will forever have a debt of gratitude for you. Thank you so much for what you have meant for me. I also, to the faculty and staff of this great school, you, of course, are what make this really happen. This work here at the board level that gets recorded and YouTubed out for the world is one thing. But what goes on in a school district is really the ratio of 25 to 1 in most places, 25 kids to 1 teacher. And that's really what happens here. And what I have seen during my time here has been absolutely jaw-dropping in so many different places. And I know that we can continue that great work and we can build on it in ways that we've already alluded to. I also want to give a shout out and some love to the leadership teams that I've been part of that have also been referenced a little bit here tonight, both our cabinet and my own leadership team that I work with for Transformative Ed. They've been a great, an exceptional group of brave school leaders during my time here. I've been so fortunate to be able to work with them. And I would be, of course, ridiculously remiss if I did not also give a shout out to my family, to my wife Jill and my 2 boys, one of whom now has to unfortunately deal with the fact that his father is the superintendent of the school that he will attend. But of course, to my family, this simply doesn't happen without them. They carve the space out to allow me to pursue this incredibly important work for this community, and I love them. So thank you all very much. Thank you all for all of this pomp and circumstance. We have a long agenda in front of us, so enough of all this. Let's get back to work.
And I think you have a call tomorrow morning at 10, right?
What's that?
You have a call at 10 in the morning. So
I'll call at 10, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Don't think we're not.
Right.
So, thank you, Greg.
Thank you.
All right. Our next item this evening is the proposed Board of Education budget for fiscal year 2022.
No, these are the action.
Yeah. Yep, so I move that we approve the proposed Board of Education fiscal year 2022 budget. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And then Ms. Sador, I think is going to help us with this, although we did see this already. How?
Okay, good. This is a follow-up to the presentation that was made at the Committee of the Whole on April 8th of 2021. And so at the conclusion of the presentation, it is recommended that the board approve the proposed Board of Education budget. This item is in compliance with strategic plan, priority 4 and district policy 4:10. Mr. Dorr.
Thank you, Dr. Pruitt-Adams. So when we were in the Committee of the Whole meeting, it was discussed to remove the hardware for technology. We removed the 50,000, which brought the budget down to 388,000. It's an increase of 6.7%, and it's about $24,000 over last year's budget. So that is the only change that was made to this budget. Also, at the time we had discussed if this once we look at this budget, it could be changed again up until the point we actually bring the tentative budget. We could go ahead and make changes.
Any questions? Yeah, any questions from the board? Gail, could you please call roll?
Mr. Martieri,
I'm voting no, only because I'm uncomfortable with us spending more in our budget this year on a year-to-year basis for the board when we are asking the district to make cuts.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Kopsky,
Yes.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Barron,
Yes.
Mr. Isley,
Yes.
and Ms. Dixon Spivey.
Yes.
Thank you.
The next agenda item is summer 2021 furniture, fixtures, and equipment purchase. I move to approve the summer 2021 furniture, fixtures, and equipment FF&E purchase in an amount not to exceed $437,423.49.
Yes,
Second.
For a second?
Second.
Is there anything you want to add?
there's nothing being added, it's exactly the same as I presented at the Cal meeting.
So I do want to make one slight correction. We have a comma where I think we got a decimal point, so it looks like it's $437 million, kind of. So that's why I got a little confused. It was 437,000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's
since it's clear. All right, no questions? Gail, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Isley,
No.
Mr. Barron,
Yes.
Mr. Martieri,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Kopsky,
Yes.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. Dixon Spivey.
Yes. Thank you. Next up, we have extension of the safeguard contract, which is our saliva testing. So I move that we approve the extension of the contract with Safeguard for an estimated additional total amount of $13,200. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. We brought this item forward so that we would continue the saliva screening through the end of athletic season, which will end on June the 19th.
Any questions from the board? Gail, could you please call the roll?
Mr. Martieri,
Yes.
Mr. Barron,
Yes.
Mr. Isley,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Kopsky,
Yes.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Ms. Dixon Spivey.
Yes. All right, our next item is the behavior education plan for 2021 and 2022 in compliance with SB 100. I move that we approve the behavior education plan as presented in compliance with SB 100. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm making this presentation or either answering any questions that you have with Ms. Linda Parker, Director of Student Services, Ms. Janelle Bishop, Lee Dean, and Mr. Greg Johnson, Associate Superintendent, soon to be known as the Superintendent.
Questions from the board?
Mr. Barron,
Yes.
Mr. Isley,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Kopsky,
Yes.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Martieri,
Yes.
and Ms. Dixon Spivey.
Yes. All right, our next agenda item is approval of the revised school calendar for the 2021-2022 school year and the proposed 2022-2023 school calendar. I move that we approve these calendars. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. As you know, we agreed several years ago to bring two calendars forward. One has already been approved and the other was bringing forward. There's many questions that you may have with the change to next year's calendar. It's Dr. Roxana Sanders. Dr. Sanders.
Yes, as Dr. Adams mentioned, the 2021-2022 school year calendar has been previously approved. We are bringing it for the board revised version because we need to postpone the start of the school year for teachers. So the only change is we're moving Institute Day Monday. And now the school will start on August 12th. And the staff development day will be moved to Pulaski Day on March 7th. It will still remain the non-attendance day for students. So there is really no impact on student attendance days. It's just moving Institute Day to March allows us to postpone the start of the school day for staff. It allows for sufficient time to clean up after construction and also for students to pick up their schedules. And the second calendar, that's a new calendar for the 2022-2023 school year. The key dates for the calendar would be the beginning of the freshman attendance day on August 15th, 2022. The first student attendance day for the remainder of the students would be August 16th. Winter break, December 19th through December 30th. Spring break, March 27th through March 31st. And then the last day of student attendance would be May 26th if there are no emergency days declared. Are there any questions?
I have a couple, if that's okay, Sarah.
Yes, of course.
Listening to the and the emails we received regarding Jewish holy days in particular. This has been, I know my time on the board, we have talked about the need to not just acknowledge, but to reflect in our calendar that the holidays other than Christian holidays are important and instrumental in indicating who we are as a district. So I'm hoping that that we can talk and that there can be an amendment to the 2022-2023 calendar that Yom Kippur, which is the holiest holiday in the Jewish faith, that be a day off for our families. And I'm saying that as a person that went grades 7 through 12 to a private school that had a large Jewish population. And I got used to Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur being holidays the same way that during that time Easter and Christmas were holidays. And I think that the conversation needs to evolve to include our Muslim holidays, Eid and some others that we've talked about before, but that we truly start reflecting. And even if it means giving up Casimir Pulaski Day or some other day, making this work so that our students and our families don't have to do what was described by our students in terms of having to choose or taking time off. And even Hanukkah, that when it doesn't fall within the same winter break period, our students and their families have to make choices that our Christian students don't. And I think that that's unfortunate. And I have felt that way. And the fact that we are doing 2 years out, I think it's a time to reflect and start proving that we are embracing the diversity and multiculturalism of our community.
Thank you.
Yeah, Sarah.
Can I jump in? I'm sorry. Sarah, I don't know if you could see me or not.
Well, Craig or Gina, either one of you. Gina, why don't you go first?
I'm sorry, did you say me or Craig? I'm sorry.
I said you, Gina. Why don't you go first?
Okay, thank you. I appreciate everything that Jackie said, and I co-sign all of that. I think that one of the challenges that I'm presented with, that I'll be a no vote on these calendars, and it's really because we still have Columbus Day. Our village doesn't even celebrate Columbus Day. It's not inclusive, and that is a huge challenge to me, that our calendars have not become inclusive already. I know that it's symbolic, and I don't want us to do things that are simply symbolic. I want things to be systemic and structural. And this is one of those ways that we could begin that process, because the students who have to take off school for their personal holidays, they're dinged for that. They can't have a perfect attendance score. They can't, right? So they're missing out in a number of ways, in addition to not feeling included. So, which is to me the biggest piece. But they, you know, if students have a desire to be successful and to gain a certain scholarship or award, and it's based on attendance, and then their attendance is not perfect because of their religious holidays, then it's a systemic structural issue that we need to change. So I really do hope that that can be amended. In addition, I actually had a question also. My question is, I know that in D97, what we send out is a link that has like all, not just our major religions, but like many faith-based holidays so that people are aware, so that our staff is aware. And I'm just curious, do we send something like that out to faculty as well at D200 to let them know all of the dates for many of the holidays that others celebrate? So not asking that every single day be held off, but just that people are made aware and that it becomes a priority that we celebrate and honor that aspect of diversity in our students' community.
We have not done that, but that is doable. I do want to note that several years ago, the board indicated that we would also celebrate Columbus Day as Indigenous Peoples' Day. So that could be put back in the calendar. I'll let the board finish talking, then I'll probably make a comment about the aspect of religious holidays.
Of course. Yeah. Craig, did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, just I'll keep it short because I think Jackie and Gina said most of what I wanted to say, but I just wanted to emphasize, I think that I can understand how complicated the problem is of dealing with multiple religious, ethnic, and holidays of all different sorts from an equity standpoint, and that's just hard because there aren't that many days, and we have to sort it out. But when I look at our calendar and I read the holidays that are on there, it is not inclusive, and I'd like us to take a better look at that. I don't know that we get to materially change that much or we have that much flexibility, but we can do a better job, I think, of trying to do it, to look at it through an equity lens, and an equity lens of all angles. So that's my 2 cents.
Thank you.
Yeah, I just agree with all the comments. And we at D90, when I was on the board, D90, we actually found a way in the scheduling, and it was complicated. I mean, and Gina understands this. There are many holidays, and it becomes difficult when you're trying to work with institute days and you're trying to work with, professional development days and all that other stuff. But we found a way to do it at D90. I'm pretty confident we could find a way to do it at D200. So maybe it's too late to get it done for this year, but I would certainly like to see it done by the following year.
Yeah. Ditto to all. I really think we need more inclusion. Jackie's comments about Yom Kippur hit home. So I think there's work to be done.
Yeah, and I'll say ditto, and I think the 2022-23 year, certainly there should be an opportunity for some, at least to try to address that and acknowledge the diversity of our so.
Matt, you're kind of breaking up. I'm going to assume maybe you're either frozen or finished. All right. Yeah. So
I finished. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I echo all the comments. Jackie's comment hit home for me because I had a similar experience in school where my school was 60% Jewish. And so I would appreciate being able to better reflect our student diversity in our calendar. And anything the board can do to help facilitate that process, we are happy to do it, but we've been saying this for several years now. So I am optimistic that we can make this a reality soon. So, Bill, would you please call the roll?
Mr. Isley?
I'm sorry, Sarah, I have a procedural question.
Sure.
Are we voting? We're just seeing the 2022-2023 calendar, correct? Are we voting on that?
That is the request, that we vote on that calendar as well.
Then as I was saying, I would like an amendment to the 2023, or we vote on them separately to reflect that those changes will be made.
Okay, so let me correct, so.
Can I ask
yes.
one more question, Sarah? I know that there's a date that calendars need to be submitted by to the state. Are we up against that date? Is it possible for them to bring it back to us, or no? Are we up against that date now?
We can start, we bring back the 22-23 school calendar. The other one we were hoping to get out because it's, people are making plans. It was already approved, so that was just the revision to the start date.
Yeah.
So maybe we
This is
could
the
separate the two and approve the 21-22, and then we'll bring back the 22nd, 23rd school year.
And you're really approving the changes
Correct.
to the 21-22.
Right, so, Jackie, I'm gonna try to craft an amendment. This is the Jackie Moore amendment. Move to amend the motion to approve only the 2021, the revised 2021 and 2022 school year calendar. Is that accurate, Jackie?
Yes.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
On the amendment, okay. But we're gonna vote on the amendment. If you could please call the roll.
Mr. Isley,
Yes.
Mr. Martiri,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Kopsky,
Yes.
Dr. Moore,
Yes.
Mr. Barron,
Yes.
and Ms. Dixon Spivey.
Yes. Now, just procedurally, do we have to vote down the second half? Okay, so I'm going to make another amended motion. Okay, I move to amend the motion to approve only the 2022-2023 school year calendar with the understanding that this will be voted down. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Could you please call the roll?
Mr. Martiri,
No.
Ms. Harris,
I'm sorry. Sarah, can you repeat what we're voting on? Because I'm trying to make sure I'm clear.
So we just bifurcated the motion, so we approved the 2021-2022, and now I anticipate we're gonna vote down the 2022-2023. This is procedurally clear, so that's what we're voting on right now, is whether we would approve the 2022-2023.
Okay, thank you. I missed that. Yeah, and that would be a no.
Mr. Kopsky,
No.
Dr. Moore,
No.
Mr. Barron,
No.
Mr. Isley,
No.
and Ms. Dixon Spivey.
No.
Thank you.
Our next item is a senior trip to Six Flags in lieu of a traditional prom. This is a contract that we're voting on, so I move to approve the senior trip to Six Flags in lieu of a traditional prom for up to $49,818. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. This is being brought forward by Ms. Susan Johnson, Director of Student Services, and Mr. Greg Johnson, Associate Superintendent. At the conclusion, as it is indicated, we would ask approval so that we can have the students go to Six Flags in lieu of prom. Mr. Johnson? Ms. Susan, in the
I think Ms. Johnson is there. I could just start by way of introduction. I think the board and the community, our students, have seen the plans that we have in place for prom to Six Flags. And because even though this trip doesn't take place until May 8th, we don't have another board meeting in between now and then. So we're bringing it here for approval for up to this amount, depending on the number of students that actually sign up and want to go to Six Flags. Of course, that cost could go down. I also, and Susan Johnson has also illustrated in the memo here, kind of that these costs are ones transportation-wise and activities account-wise are ones that come from existing funds that have not been spent down. So these are funds that are part of existing budgets. So that is, I think all we need to say by way of introduction, I don't know if Susan has anything else she wants to add, but if you have any questions. Yeah, okay.
Does the board have any questions on this item?
I have one question, Sarah, which is, has there been any poll of the students in terms of expected attendance and interest level?
We spoke to, like, we have a prom committee that's made up of students. And then we spoke to them, we worked through this with them. And then also we had multiple other groups that we met with and polled them to find out their level of interest. We compared it to the possibility that we could do something small for them on campus, and they preferred this event over anything so that they could all be together.
And you also had an opportunity for all seniors to log into a meeting to discuss the activity.
That's right.
Every senior was invited multiple ways to come to a meeting so they could give their feedback.
Thank you.
All right, when do students need to RSVP?
So tomorrow we'd be sending out an RSVP form for them to sign up for it. We have to give the information to Six Flags by the Wednesday before we take them. The other piece I want to say is if we have students that sign up and they don't end up going, Six Flags is going to refund us for any tickets we don't use. So there's no money that we would potentially lose by having students back up.
What about the busing though? I assume there might be some fee for canceled buses, right?
As long as we cancel them before 24 hours, we're fine.
Oh, okay, great. That's good. All right, board, are you ready to vote?
I just have a quick comment I want to make. I just want to thank Susan and others who worked to make this happen. And I really feel like it's going to be a great experience. I also know that there's some chaperones that are needed, and I'm sure I'm forbidden by my two seniors from being a chaperone, but I just appreciate those who are going to be volunteering and the other staff, whoever's going to be up there to help make this a great day. So it's not what we would have envisioned a year ago or 15 months ago, but I appreciate we're making the best of a difficult situation.
It's a really great resolution, all things considered.
Thank you.
Mr. Kopsky,
Yes.
Dr. Miller,
Yes.
Mr. Barron,
Yes.
Mr. Isley,
Yes.
I couldn't hear her.
Mr. Montieri,
Yes.
Ms. Harris,
Yes.
Ms. Dixon Spivey.
Yes, thank you. All right, next we have our consent items. Is there any item that a board member would like to pull from the consent agenda? All right, I move we approve the following consent items. 9.01, open and close minutes of March 25th, 2020, April 5th, 8th, and 19th of 2021, and declare that the audio recordings of the closed session minutes for October 2019 shall be destroyed. 9.02, the IHSA 2021-2022 membership form. And I move to certify on this one, I move to certify that the Upper Grand Forest High School is recognized by the Illinois State Board of Education, so that we're not disqualified from our membership in the IHSA. I move to approve the personnel recommendations on 9.03, including new hires, summer hires, and resignations as presented. I move to approve the item 9.04, April 2021 check disbursements and financial resolutions as presented. 9.05, which is the presentation of monthly financial reports. I move to approve that is presented. That is for February 2021. As for the monthly treasurer's report, it's 9.06. We move to approve the February 2021 treasurer's report as presented. 9.07, which is food service intergovernmental agreement with District 97 for the 2021-2022 school year. We move to approve a one-year extension of that IGA or intergovernmental agreement between Oak Park River Forest High School and District 97 for the provision of meals for the next school year. 9.08, which is a space sharing agreement with Triton College, and move to approve the memorandum of understanding with Triton College as presented. We also received 9.09 as a donation for the Board of Education to accept with much gratitude the monetary donation of $1,000 from Mr. Thomas Haskins Jacobs. Thank you very much, sir. 9.10 is the approval of administrator and director contracts. We move to approve those contracts for the 2021 and 2022 school year. Is there a second?
Second.
Second.
Gail, could you please call the roll?
Dr. Moore? Mr. Darren?
Yes.
Mr. Isley?
Yes.
Mr. Martieri?
Yes.
Ms. Harris?
Yes.
Kowski?
Yes.
And Ms. Dixon Spivey?
Yes, thank you. Thank you. All right, now we're into discussion items. We have 10.01, letter of agreement with the Historical Society of Oak Park Urban Forest. This was an item.
We pulled that item
Oh, it's been pulled. Okay,
until further investigation.
thank you. We'll disregard that. 10.02. So I got excited. 10.02.
I'm sorry. Okay. Discussion item 10.02 is the renumbering project. If you recall, back in December 2020, at the committee of the whole, there was a discussion about FGM architects doing the renumbering. It was suggested that we tap into our faculty and staff, our students and community members. Tonight, making the presentation on renumbering is Mr. Ronald Anderson, and I believe he is joined by Miss Misty Olson, community member, and Miss Kim Hoyt, community member and member of the CFAC, and both the parents of Oak Park and River Forest Huskies. This item is in compliance with strategic plan priority 4, facilities and operations and finance, and board policy 2:140.
I'll be pulling up the presentation and trying to locate my phone.
At the conclusion of the presentation, while he's pulling that up, the next steps will be to purchase and install numbers on applicable doors, reprogram applicable internal systems such as Skyward, building automation system, fire panel, etc., update the locker numbering, and develop and install new wayfaring signage in each hallway.
So back in December, I reached out to Misty Olson after the board instructed us to use staff, parents, community members, whoever we can to save money on doing this project. So I reached out to Misty Olson, who is the community council, OPRF advisory committee. She's also a parent and a project manager. So she happily took the lead on the project, and she brought aboard Kim Hoyt. Kim Hoyt also is a community member, volunteer parent, and she's also part of the, can't forget that she's also an alumni of Oak Park. So she was vital in the navigation of the building. She's a member of the Imagine team, Community Financial Advisory Committee, and I also have them on the line with us. Missy and Kim, are you there?
We are, I am here.
So I'll pass the baton to you.
Fantastic. I'll try to make this as brief since this meeting is going quickly and I'm sure everyone is anxious to take advantage of a few extra hours this evening. Obviously you guys know with the construction, they were adding new classrooms and thus making our existing numbering system even more confusing should we try to add new numbers in the middle. So this was the perfect time to come in and rethink the numbering schematics to try and add some logic and reason to sort of how our classrooms are laid out. So we wanted to sequentially incorporate those rooms. Obviously, they reached out to me, as Ron mentioned, and we spent a lot of time in the building. And as we will go into the next slide, you'll kind of see what we've come up with. Throughout this process, we have had input from the administration, department heads, student leadership, individual students and alumni, as well as the architects and construction managers. So we've really tried to involve all the stakeholders through all the processes to make sure we haven't missed anything major, and that what we're proposing meets all of the guidelines and parameters of the systems with which these numbers will be used. So this may sound a little confusing, but I want to kind of preface with the logic of how the number works, and then you'll be able to apply that as you see it. So the main thing we're doing is switching to a 4-digit room number. The first digit will indicate the floor. So in our example, if you see a 3110, you'll know that this is on the 3rd floor. The second number will indicate the hallway or the corridor that that door is on. And again, that'll become a little bit more obvious when we look at the layout. And then the 3rd and 4th digit are sequential orientation that are sort of the unique identifier. The numbers are sequentially from south to north. Odd number classrooms are around the exterior of the building. Even numbers are on the interior. The building is kind of divided into quadrants, O, P, R, and F, which is there from an orientation perspective, just to kind of help visualize where you are in the building. And then some rooms will have a 5th digit or letter if they are subrooms, rooms within rooms. Which we do have a lot of those storage closets and things of that nature. So to try and kind of keep it oriented, we have A's and B's. So keeping all of that in mind, here's an example of the 3rd floor. So the most important thing to learn from this is, if we're looking here, Scoville here on the east, the first main hallway in pink is corridor 1. So referring back to the room numbers we spoke of, if we were on the 3rd floor, any room off of the pink corridor 1 would be a 3-1 room number. Similarly, if it's off the 2nd corridor, it's 2, and the 3rd corridor, it's 3. So a 3rd floor could have 3-1 numbers, 3-2 numbers, and 3-3 numbers. So again, if a student's new to the building or anyone, you should immediately know from those first 2 numbers which floor and which hallway to go off of, right? And then if you're thinking about the 3rd and 4th digits, just like a hotel, right? They go from little to big. So that's kind of the overarching logic to help you sort of get to where you're going to go in the building. Kind of like we said, this adding more layers of logic here. The odd numbers are around the exterior. The even numbered rooms are in the interior. So we have some examples here, 3391, it's obviously on the northernmost side. Conversely, 3301 is on the southernmost side. And you can see here that 3301 is parallel with 3101. So we've done to the best of our ability to make the room numbers parallel. So that if you're in corridor 1 and you need to go to, again, we can use the 3101 and you're like, oh shoot, it's 3301. You should know that that room is parallel in the corresponding hallway. We've tried to do that on top of the floors as well. So 2101 would be directly under 3101 on the 2nd floor, as the case may be. So again, we've tried to have, sometimes obviously the floors are laid out differently, but to the best of our ability, we've tried to make main anchor classrooms be the same as they're stacked on top of each other, and as well as parallel across from one another in the hallways. I know it sounds a little convoluted, but promise it makes sense. And then the OP and RF quadrants. If you see here, the classrooms numbered 100 to 124 for the purposes of this example. If the last 2 digits are anywhere between 1 to 25, that's the O quadrant. 30 to 49 is P, 50 to 79 R, 80 to 99 is F. There's been some discussion in the future that we could do different things visually to separate these parts of the building, again, to help orient the student to where they are. It could be a different color wall paint. It could be wayfaring signs on the floor. It could be different things on the door signage themselves. So again, it's just a different way for people to visualize. Obviously, people learn and memorize things in different ways. So this just is another layer of logic to sort of help orient themselves into the building.
And we'll also have weight bearing at each hallway end. So when the kid gets to the end of the hallway, they will see that group of numbers, and including in that group of numbers right up under it, you would know if you're by the O, P, R, or the F. That way, if you're an F and you know that you have an O, you know you need to be on the other side of the building. So we're trying to put that logic in so it'd be easier to find the classrooms.
Yeah, so there's just different ways. So I guess we could go back to those slides if you guys want to go back. I know that's a lot to digest in a short period of time, but I wanted to open it up for questions. If anyone has any questions.
Any questions from the board? No, I think it is so much easier than what we have. We're all questionless. This is fantastic.
I love when there's no questions. It's either you're completely confused or it makes perfect sense. Right?
This is awesome.
Those two things, I'm going to go with it makes perfect sense. So as mentioned before, you know, kind of the next steps, which I guess, Ron, you probably want to speak to.
So our next step will be to go into the reprogramming applications within the school, like Skyward, the building automation system, the fire panel, those type of things, so that the internal numbers matches the new classroom numbering systems. Also, to purchase and install new numbers on all of the doors. We will use the same placeholders that's there now, which is replacing the paper and the plastic numbers on the doors to make sure they're ADA compliant with the Braille and those type of things. We update the locker numbering. We're in the process now of getting quotes to replace the locker numbering. As you know, on the locker numbering system is based off the door numbers. So currently, if your locker is in front of door number 220, that bank of lockers is 221 through whatever. So you know your number is 220, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So we're going to apply the same logic to the lockers so that kids won't be confused as well. And I spoke earlier about developing and installing new wayfair signage at the end of each hallway to make sure kids know exactly which hall, at the end of the hall, you just look up and see exactly where the numbers are ascending or descending to. But one of the main things I want to do is have a big thanks to Misty Olson and Kim Hoyt, because they didn't only talk the talk, they actually walked the walk literally for weeks through the hallways and put in a lot of hours. They were here, met all the deadlines, didn't complain after hours, and they came and met with the superintendent, they met with different groups, and they were able to make sure that we met the deadline with the construction, because we had to do renumbering for the new SRC project. So these numbers had to lead to those numbers and make sense. So they made sure that we were able to do that. And if they were here, I would give them a standing ovation because they're truly real parent volunteers who didn't really talk about it, they really walked it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it is a big school, so we truly walked. More so, I mean, there are rooms that I bet some of y'all didn't even know existed. You know, scary rooms, big rooms. By golly, they all have a new number. So if you ever want to find them, you just let us know.
And thanks to Kim. Kim was the alumni that was able to navigate everything that Misty couldn't find. So she made it a lot easier.
You know, absolutely. Kim, having been a student there, you know, it's really great because she brought a perspective of, you know, being a student in the building and knowing it in a different way. So her input is really crucial about, you know, again, how a student would view the room or how it's looked at, and does this room feel like a part of this corridor or that corridor based on where the double doors are, and things like that, that really brought a lot of great insight to the project. And I certainly could not have done it without her. So when I get roped into something, you know, I'm happily pulling her along with me.
And I thought I had seen every room in the high school until this project, and now I truly have seen every room.
Thanks again, Kim and Misty, for your time and commitment. I'm sure Greg will buy you dinner.
Yeah, now that we know Greg has a new budget, by the way, we know where to go.
Be happy to.
Yeah,
Thank you, ladies,
we
so
cannot
much.
thank you enough. This has been a huge issue for decades, as I'm sure you all know, that we seem to have solved within months. With two moms who do. You guys are amazing. So thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Thank you so very much.
No problem.
Thank you.
The next item is the report on superintendent goal 2A and 2B. As you know, initially goal number 2 was to develop a tool that would help us to use evidence-based funding. The initial tool B was tied to facilities and finance, construction. And so then the third goal was actually one about using a tool to analyze where we're headed with regards to budget. So tonight we're presenting where we are with regards to developing the tool that will help us to analyze and predict where we are fiscally and to make sound budgetary decisions. The other part of the goal is that it has to be implemented by June, and so we will be back in June to make a formal presentation on how it will be used as we move forward. So making the presentation tonight are Ms. Cindy Sedor, our Chief School Business Official / Chief Financial Officer, and Ms. Alyssa Alfano, who's the Director of Finance. This item is in compliance with Strategic Plan Priority 4, Operations, Facility, and Finance, Superintendent Goals 2A and 2B, and I'll turn it over to Ms. Sedor.
Thank you, Dr. Pruitt-Adams. This was a fun project. This is a lot of, as you can see, the type is so small on here.
Can you blow it up a little bit?
Yeah.
Okay, I think that.
Thank you. So what we did is we took the numbers of, we looked at the staff, we also looked at the salaries, and we started to put them into the model here. There are 29 different categories. And with the different categories, there's also a description of each one of the categories. So you have a core teacher. With the core teacher, in red is what the evidence-based funding model has for the guidelines of what we should be using. If there's any description in blue, what that is staff that we could not exactly identify under one of the categories. So some of these are certified staff, and there were some that could fall possibly into this, but they're not certified. But we put them in here so that this here is actually matching what our budget is for the dollar amount and also our staff. Below what we have put is possibly a position or something that couldn't be identified, such as a facilitator. So those went underneath at the bottom with the dollar amounts. We didn't identify a number of staff that we have because we use different amounts of staff for that. With this too, what we were looking at is to look at the, so you look at the one thing we're looking at is the FY21 value and adequacy target. That is actually the target that we're to use for the evidence-based funding. The next one is the actual staffing. And with that, that doesn't mean whether you're up or down, that that's a good or bad thing. It is just the fact that you're looking at the fact of, are you adequate? There's, with the two sections here, I'm just going to go through how we filled in the numbers, and then I'll go to part B of what we're going to be doing and how we're going to use this going forward. So with the differences, we looked at the differences between the adequacy target and then also what we have.
Is this the page you want him on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this one's so far. This is only number one.
Okay.
Then the second side of it is two. Then we have the dollar amounts. With the dollar amounts, it's the cost per prior to applying a regionalization factor. With the regionalization factor, there's different amounts for the region and where we live. So that's what the difference is. Where we spend more because our cost is more. So that is usually why that you have the regionalization factor. Then we also have the actual cost. These are what our budgeted amounts were that we had put in there. And then there was, again, the difference between the dollar amounts what evidence-based funding had and also what we had budgeted. So there was, again, the difference in that, and also we put in the percentage amount differences. There are, like I said, mentioned, there are 29 categories to this. I don't want to read through each one. I just wanted to give an example of one on this. There will be a correction on this though too that I need to point out, and that is in the second section that we were working on. A little bit further, I think. Right here, thank you. With this, there is a cell in there, and in the cell, it showed that we needed to add in O&M and our maintenance and operations, and also to the central office. But because of the regionalization factor, we should actually be the top number, not the number that subtracts out that amount. Because like I said, the CWI is a comparative wage index, which is a measure of regional variations in salaries. So we should be a top amount, not the amount below. So our actual total would have been 62,747,000, which gives us about a 130% of adequacy. The other thing that I do want to point out on this too is working through this was a little bit different because we do have some costs in here that we sort of had to plug in, like I said, these blue ones to make them sort of match up. But by doing that, it seems like it skews a little bit of what the dollar amounts are or the actual staff we have. And an example I could give, I'll actually give two. One is for special ed. Special ed actually looks at core, and the core classes would be math, English, reading. And we also have site students that are transitional. So with that, we are actually adding in the off-site teachers into this model here and now putting them at the bottom. So it looks like our numbers are a little bit higher, which means that the number of teachers will be higher. So will the dollar amounts the same with the TAs. Our TAs will be the exact same thing because we have some TAs that are off-site too. The other is summer school. Summer school, there is really not a category for summer school, except if you have low income or English learners. And with that, if we did the comparison to that, we have a 0.11 there, and the adequacy is showing, I believe, English learners. But yet we know we have summer school here. So if we plug that into the model, obviously we will be much higher using this model. So the question sort of becomes for us, are we using this model correctly? Or are we actually trying to create something that is a little bit different than, and it should be very specific to what Oak Park and River Forest High School is looking for?
So if I could interject.
Sure.
Based upon our conversation with Izzy, it would be the latter. Because there are positions, as we said, that we were okay with plugging in, where we believe that they went. However, with some of the other budgetary factors, that as a district, we wanted to consider in an effort to begin to plan budgets and how we hire and how we do our allocations, is we indicated that we would be actually straying away from the evidence-based funding model, which is about the funds and the staffing needed to provide an adequate education for students. And so we would be putting in additional pieces. And so it's more of a hybrid process than the true straight EBS process.
So that's the part that also comes with the budgetary part of it then. Because if you're trying to look at it and say, well, from a budgetary aspect of it, I'm spending way more than I should be, or is it okay that I'm spending this? I realize we're adding in extra dollars. But again, then we're really moving away from what the evidence-based funding model is really designed to be. So that is, you know, the choice of how we're gonna do this, because if we take and match all of our expenses up from the budget, there will be definitely more additional dollars down at the bottom. Speaking with the state too, they did say that these were actual salaries that were in here, except for the fact where you have 4 categories and also the benefits. So that's why this would sway a little bit from if we had anything else in there.
Do you want to speak to those columns where you
Oh,
just
sure.
start to?
Mhm. So what is the employee benefits? And with the employee benefits, there was a 30% of the salaries. Evidence-based funding gave us what the salaries were, and then also too what the benefits would be. And then we also had the salaries plus what the benefits would be. We did put into a column off to the side what our actual budgeted amounts was. There's a difference though between what we put in our budget and also too what the evidence-based funding was looking for. The evidence-based funding is only looking for Social Security, TRS, IMRF, dental and health, where you have Medicare, you have 403B, and we also have life insurance. So that would be the difference. That's what we talk about when we may skew the numbers a little bit when we look at them. The other categories are, it was professional development. It was also technology and equipment, and the other one was assessments. So again, this is all geared towards students. How much money are we spending on students when we use technology? And also too, for assessments, what are we spending for our students in this, for assessments? And also too, the professional development we're using is just helping our teachers with our students. It's not all professional development in there too. So some groups would not have professional or would not add it, like myself. Mine would, it's not impacting the student, but the teachers and administrators definitely.
Do you want to speak to moving forward, how we'll use this to
Yes.
help develop the budget?
Correct. So looking at this, if we go along with the evidence-based funding model is actually looking at and saying what we should use it for, then you can look at it and say that are we spending enough resources in the dollars and the staff that we have? If we start putting in extra dollars, the decision may look like we're using too much when we're really not, because there's again other factors that are falling in here. So if I look at part of the when I spoke to I didn't speak, I emailed them. When I spoke to the state about this, what we talked about was the if are all categories falling in here, and if they're not falling in here, you can have them, but then you would put them at the bottom. So we may look at it that by looking at our budget may spend more, but we also have to look at the fact, what education do some of our staff have? We may have some education that they're looking at it, and this is the adequate level, and I'm just going to use an MA5. So let's say MA5 is the adequate, but our teachers may have MA45 because they continue on with their education, which is good for the school, obviously, because more education the teachers have, the more they bring back to the district. So that is part of also looking at, we could be spending more than what the actual model uses. As far as the budget goes, that is where we would have to be looking at what the dollar amounts we're paying as we go forward to. The other side is now I'm going to go to, this is part A, but there's also a part B. And then we're going to talk about the priority 1, priority 2, and priority 3. Priority 1 is racial equity. Priority 2 is transformative education, and 3 is finance and operations. So with that, what we will be looking at, and can you move over a little bit to the right? Yes, perfect. And go to the top, please.
It's really priority 4.
I'm sorry.
Which is facility. You said the indicator, but it's priority 4 is facilities, operations, and finance. For operations, facilities, and finance. There you go. Could you scroll over just a little bit more?
Oh, perfect.
Oh, there we go.
Thank you. So what will happen, this was part of also, this was the part B, that we need to look at and answer the questions. Are we meeting racial equity? Are we also meeting the transformative education? And, are we also for the budget, keeping the budget in line with operations, maintenance, and finance? And I just gave in my box here is I have the priority 4, so I just put one explanation in. The next would be, is this in the strategic plan? The other is, are we meeting the expectations for priority 4? And then if we're not, what is the next step? And how will we start to meet, are we with the strategic plan or where our expected outcomes are?
I'm glad you said that, because I was just going to say, one of the key pieces is even when you have the number of teachers allocated that's related to the adequacy target, when you really start talking about the analyzation and how the district spends their dollars, what Ms. Sador is speaking to, if you're not getting the expected outcomes, then you have to begin to look at how do we use these dollars differently.
Correct.
And that's not to say releasing anyone, I don't want to say that, but it's just, that's part of the analyzation is, are we getting, because it's all about adequate education for kids. And are we getting the desired outcomes based upon the dollars? We hear routinely from the board that we are actually spending more than our neighboring school districts for instruction. And so the goal is, then are we meeting those pieces? And at the end of the day, there'll be a direct correlation across all of the goals. The one for student performance, which is goal 1, the one now goal 3 for facilities and operations. At some point, there's an alignment across those 3 goals.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you. I'm sure the board has many questions. One suggestion that I just want to make initially is this is something that merits a lot more conversation than we probably could do tonight, and a lot more analysis, I think, by board members as well. So I would suggest that we discuss it tonight, certainly, but I would also like to recommend like a board retreat, essentially, especially with the new board members, to really dig into this deeper, because I think they would probably benefit from having that conversation as well and understanding the EDF better, right?
Just point of clarification, because one of the tenets of the goal was to use this for implementation with how we move forward. So it's scheduled for a presentation in June. Are you wanting the board retreat before that?
I don't know, we can talk about that further, right? Like I'm not waiting for any sort of process. I just think, when I came on the board, school funding was one of the biggest challenges. And now that we're laying this on top of it as well, I suspect that it might be useful to spend some time dedicated solely to this. I'm not to say that I want to add more meetings, but we can talk about how that might go.
Just if I could just jump in, just a couple of things. This becomes a very useful tool for evaluating the efficacy of resource allocation. And there may be reasons for differentials between what the evidence-based model suggests is sufficient and what our investment level is. But we need to know what those reasons are, and we need to tie them to outcomes. We couldn't even have that discussion until we had this kind of data on resource allocation. So no tool is a be-all, end-all for making decisions, but this is a tool that will certainly help us have the context we need to understand our decisions better and to make better resource allocation decisions in the future when we are not attaining the desired outcomes we want to attain. So I think that this is a fantastic first step. I want to thank Cindy and her team for doing this. Second, I want to make it clear what the adequacy model does. And Cindy, if you had any trouble reading these elements, this is the part of the statute I drafted, so it's on me. But I will tell you this: the adequacy target isn't just a bare minimum. It is the amount of resources a district would need based on its unique student population to drive enhanced and adequate student outcomes. So it's not like sort of the Chevy when you could have a Cadillac. It's really what you need. So when you have a district like ours that has resources in excess of what it needs to have sound, good, admirable academic outcomes, then I think it is appropriate to start looking at your resource allocation decisions to make sure you're driving your resources in the best way possible to generate the outcomes you desire to generate in your school district, so that you could really say that, yes, you are an excellent and equitable school district for all your kids. Look at our outcomes, and these outcomes are predicated on our resource allocation decisions, all of which took into account of what the evidence suggested would actually work to attain these outcomes. So I think this is a very, very valuable tool. I do want to thank the team for getting this together, and it will help provide meaningful context for our discussions going forward.
Thank you. Thank you.
Can I jump in on that, or?
Yeah, go ahead, Tom.
Yeah, thank you, Ralph, for your comment. And I actually have some questions for you, again, at the high level, knowing that we're not going to get into it. I guess first, I have a question of Cindy, because she stated something, because I know there's been some revisions, but you said that we're at 130, I think you said 130%. Is that?
137%.
137%. Okay.
Yes.
So,
math.
okay. So what my understanding is, and Ralph, if you could help, is that the district's adequacy level is 117%, which my read on that is, based on the wealth of our district, we can afford to spend 117%. Is that reading it correctly from what the state calculations are? Ralph.
So I'm not clear, actually, Tom, what you're asking. So please re-ask.
The state calculations, when you go out onto the website,
yeah,
and they present and look at each district, and they calculate based on EAV, et cetera, 100% adequacy for our district is $45.6 million. Okay. It says that we have final resources of 52 or something million dollars, which is 117% of that base number.
Right.
So my read on that is that because of the wealth of we can afford 117% adequacy.
I mean, it's basically saying that's the resource allocation decision we've made, predicated on our local capacity target and our choice of funding. So,
okay.
But they're not making a qualitative comment about what we can afford. They are saying this is what, in fact, we are investing.
From what our tax.
Right.
Okay. And then
we could actually afford to be investing more.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
because we've invested less. We've held our levies below what we could have levied at. Right.
Yep.
So we could actually, given our EAV, be spending significantly more on K-12, on our education system, 9th grade through 12. We are choosing not to.
Yep.
And we are choosing not to by controlling our levy. And that's really all the ISB is saying. They're not making any kind of qualitative comment about what we can afford. They're just summarizing what we've decided to spend.
Based on the levy. But then
Yes.
when you, okay, so, and I'm just going to flip from that, because that number, which is published, is 117. And then the number that Cindy said, which, there's still work to do. We got to, this is work in progress. We got to get it right. We're not going to get it perfect.
Sure.
And I agree with all your comments about tool, but her number says we're spending, based on the 29 things, 137%. Okay. So that means we're putting more of our levy resources into these student outcome buckets. Somewhere it's squeezing out somewhere else, right?
Yeah, I mean, if you just look, the answer is we need to do a sophisticated analysis of what these numbers are telling us. So for instance, there's one subcategory, I think for administrative costs, that's at 400%, some 440% of adequacy. So it's an item where we have both more personnel and more salary. So I think we have to understand why we have that. It may not be a waste of money. It may be a good investment. We just have to understand why we're making that investment.
Yeah.
And this tool gives us the opportunity to ask the questions and understand the context for why certain investments have been made. And if we feel like they might be good investments, but we could make better investments to generate better outcomes, we might decide to do a resource shift there, right? From column A to column B.
Correct. Yeah. And I guess that leads to once you have the data in the right format, then those decisions can be made with the recognition that where we are is the product of decisions that have been made for 2 decades or more. And it isn't going to change in 15 minutes, but through, long-term thinking and planning, we can make decisions to say we want to shift here or there to, again, align and drive student outcomes, because it should all be about student outcomes.
Student outcomes. That's exactly right, Tom. And
Yep.
this is a valuable tool as part of the information that we would utilize for making those decisions. And I actually very much appreciate your long-term focus, Tom, because that's the answer. There's existing contracts, there's existing this and that. It's not like you can pivot right away on a dime and make a bunch of reallocation decisions. But now we can actually have the context I think we need to have really thoughtful discussions tied to the evidence of what works on where our resource allocations ought to go in the future to generate the outcomes we want. And once again, it is all about servicing the students that attend our school and generating the outcomes for our students that they deserve.
Right. Thank you.
Thank you both. Do we have questions or comments from other board members on this item?
Yeah, I just have one,
Mhm.
or a couple. I guess I wanted to, and I started to see a little bit of this in the creation of the tool, and just building on what Ralph and Tom.
Mr. Isley, could you speak just a little bit louder?
Okay, is that better?
That is so much better, thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry. I think you have to view the tool as a strategic tool, not as a budgetary tool. Because if you try to use these categories and rate things and drive your specific budgets around those categories, you're putting a lot of effort in it that the tool does not have the granularity to support. It's got to give you the category. To me, it's made to make you go, right? You find issues in here where you're way away from the adequacy number, and you need to understand why. And some whys could be good, and some whys could require you to make changes. And you have a 5-year plan, and you look at those changes over, 3 to 5 years. And so my only counsel is don't get lost in the minutia. Stay on the balcony and focus on the big categories. Are we getting student outcomes in those categories? What are we spending in those categories? And, where do we have to revisit what we're doing? So that's all.
That's one of the things that ISB said to us, that some of what we were putting in order to use it as a budgetary driver was moving away from the evidence-based funding intent. And so that's why we referenced earlier, it's more of a hybrid that we're creating.
Hey, it's Gina. First, can I just thank Tom and Ralph for your, can you guys hear me? Okay. I just want to thank Tom and Ralph for your conversation, because it provided some clarity that I was seeking. But also, I just want to double down on this idea of long-term. And really, I'd like us to be, I know we've asked for this a number of times, and I just want us to keep this as part of our ongoing conversation is that long-term aspect of what we're looking at, as well as how everything fits together, right? Like, so making sure that all of the numbers that we're getting and everything that we're looking at is relevant to each other so that the information isn't isolated and then we come back another month and then it's like there's more information. It's really like hoping that we get this overall picture and that we maintain that. Thank you for laughing and smiling, Ralph. I appreciate that.
Matt, did you have any comments?
Just completely agreed there, Gina. So I was enjoying it. It was a nerd moment for me where I was a nerd.
I'm glad we can nerd out together, Ralph. I'm so glad.
No, I'm all nerded out too. Thank you, Sarah.
Pull up. All right. This is fascinating. So thank you so much. I know it took a lot of time and a lot of effort, and it's greatly appreciated because I do think it is really going to be helpful moving forward to better understand not just where we are, but how we got here, right? So I do look forward to June, see what's coming next. I think it would be helpful for us to make sure that we have our new board members also involved in some of these conversations before the big reveal. So they have the full impact. All right.
Okay, and the next item, item 10.04 is summer programming. During our last board meeting, the question came up about summer programming and why the district could not host summer school on site. So as promised, we said we would come back with a presentation tonight. So presenting on summer programming is Mr. Ronald Anderson, Executive Director of Operations, Greg Johnson, Associate Superintendent, Selima Francois Wu, Executive Director of Special Education. And this item is in compliance with strategic plan priorities 2 and 4, district policy 4:150, and district policy 6:310. Okay.
Yeah, just a very quick way of introduction. The question 2 weeks ago, or I should say probably a month ago at the board table was, what have you done to reach out to other facilities to see if we can have any type of in-person learning or maintain our sports camps or those types of things due to the construction that we have. And so just a very high level, the memo that we have here is broken down by way of, even though it wasn't a specific ask, just giving that context again for why and what is going on in this building this summer. And then breaking it down to academic programming, our sports camps, and our extended school year services for special education. And we could open it up to questions, or maybe a quick overview of each of those categories would be a good idea.
I was gonna say something really quick. I do want to remind the board that back in 2019, we informed the board that once construction started, we would not be able to conduct summer school on site for summer 2021, I believe summer 2022, if memory serves me. And there was a charge at that time to do some investigatory inquiries, and again, as we move forward. So I'll turn it over to you guys.
Yeah, sure. So as far as the 3 different categories we talked about, for academic programming, as Dr. Prudence just pointed out, in October of 2019, we knew we would almost certainly be in this situation. So last spring, we had begun to reach out, this is pre-COVID, we had begun to reach out to District 97, District 90, Fenwick, Dominican, Triton, and Concordia. And actually that had been quite a while ago. So we had we dug through our emails and figured out this grid for all these different places that we had reached out to again. We reached out to them again this spring to kind of verify those answers and see what we had found out. What we had found for all those as far as academic programming is concerned, as far as summer school services, going in and teaching traditional classes in those spaces, there just simply isn't room for a variety of reasons that are listed there. I should actually say John Stelzer is also in this call right now. If we have any questions about the second item for sports camps. When we originally knew that we couldn't do our sports camps, our concerns was that it would be impossible to do any indoor sports camps this summer. We were actually fortunate that the IHSA summer season extends to June 19th. That opened up the building for that time because we couldn't begin construction as a result for any of the work. So that kicked us 2 weeks, a few weeks down the road, allowing our summer camps, as you see listed in this table here, to go on. What we've illustrated in this table too is the comparison between what we're able to offer in the summer of 21 versus what we traditionally offer, as illustrated by what we did offer in the summer of 2019. And so for most of our camps, you're going to see that they're able to move on, and we are still looking for some way to handle boys volleyball and wrestling, but we do know they will have conditioning at the very least. And then extended year services.
Okay, yeah, extended school year services, I think, is falling in line in terms of where. I'm sorry.
You need to turn it on.
Thank you. Thank you. In terms of extended school year services, we started to look at alternative locations for ESY quite a while ago, as we knew that some of the construction project was going to be starting, and then we didn't have, we're not going to have any programming on site. So we really started to kind of look at any alternative locations close by, looking at different real estate properties in terms of just different, any storefront opportunities. We were really trying to be very creative in what we were looking at for ESY and to provide something in person. We looked at churches. We did look at our feeder school, knowing that they had some buildings under construction, not knowing how many, the number. Reaching out to their senior director of buildings and grounds, they were very quick to respond and say, we have several buildings under construction, particularly ones that we could potentially offer, but we don't have any extra spaces for shifting how we're going to be providing programming as well. We also looked at how we could utilize spaces that were not schools, such as the church, as I mentioned, across the street, Pilgrim. St. Edmund's Church is a church that has came up before, and just kind of consulting with some of the people that were here before I came into the position, but they had a multi-year contract for some of the classroom spaces that they use as well. We also even talked about, like I said, any buildings that were around both myself and Mr. Anderson and executive cabinet that could possibly be rented out, that were either empty or that were kind of only part of it was being used. And we really did not have much success in finding something, especially that was going to be suitable for all of our students. So we did make sure that we exhausted every possibility for offering ESY services in person, in addition to going back and asking our staff and assessing RFCC for site students, particularly who would be available or be voluntarily willing to work in person at RFCC. I'll be very forthcoming in saying that we are addressing several things in terms of technology that we are struggling with, particularly on the second floor. If we're implementing hybrid programming at RFCC, we've been working really closely with RFCC, our ed tech department, exhausting and problem solving how to create more sustainable solutions for that. It's been a very, very difficult year, particularly on the second floor for one of the classrooms. Downstairs on the first floor, not as difficult, but still impacted. So we're also looking at how can we re-envision ESY for next year, school year 21-22, because we also have our students that are turning 22 during the next school year that due to HB 40 that we may have to continue to provide some form of transition plus programming for. So that's actually going to require us to think outside of the box and how we're accessing and using RFCC or using other potential sites for that. So we're already starting planning on that now.
Questions from board members? Okay, so I have a question. Ms. Francois Blue, in looking at the RFCC and the conversation around site in the last paragraph, one sentence in particular caught my eye. Considering this request comes as a shift from all staff working remotely this summer, they're given a deadline of Tuesday the 20th to let the admin know, as many of us, as this may require revision of plans, et cetera. So it's a twofold question. One is, do we have a sense, since it's after April 20th, what those numbers look like? But really, my question really sort of stems around, I'm just not clear on why or how site all staff faculty thought that they would be remote this summer. Was this, I must have missed this, like, was this an MOU? I don't believe we have any MOUs for this summer. How was this communicated and why?
Thank you. There was communication sent to all staff about summer being fully remote. So they were under the impression that planning for how they would be treating students over the summer, including ESY, was going to be remote. We did not propose initially alternative options until we investigated other spaces in addition to RCC. And then we asked staff if they, given the fact that we've had some problems with internet, how can we provide hybrid and or on-site programming? And would you be willing to do that, even though some of your colleagues may not be working in person? And we had to do that kind of respectfully because we've had conversations with staff feeling like, well, special education staff is being asked to do something that their counterparts are not. So we kind of had to respect that space and kind of lean into that, which is why we said to them, you know, we want to give you the opportunity to tell us, would you be willing to do this now? We do need some help. We want to make sure that we can provide some students with some form of in-person opportunities and to let us know. And at this time, we don't have staff that have responded with a yes. We are looking at different ways to provide some students who are ESY with community-based work opportunities that we're offering. So we're really thinking outside of the box and inside of it to give students something that's a little bit more meat to what they're getting that's going to be remote, because we know it's kind of like coming into the school year remote, going hybrid back to remote, not ideal at all. So we definitely understand that and honor that. And in fact, I have a meeting today about a work-based experience, community work-based experience for a student.
So correct me if I'm wrong though, but site has traditionally been at RFCC, correct?
Yep.
So I guess I'm still trying to wrap my head around this. Like I appreciate the fact that we have, you know, most faculty who's going to teach in summer school will be remote. I'm just struggling with the idea that we sort of notified all staff that they would be remote, so it becomes an expectation, right? Especially given that site especially is not even here, right? There's not the construction issue with site. So that is the piece that I find the most troubling. Much as I am disappointed by the fact that students are gonna have to be remote, because this has just been, it's just a really bad time for that, right? I think we can all agree. I understand it at least. This piece, I just still don't understand why we would communicate to staff that they would be remote before we had exhausted all exploration. Because that sets an expectation that we then have to walk back and can't apparently. So, I mean, I don't want to belabor it, I'm not trying to point fingers, but that is troubling to me.
I understand. I see you're saying, why not say if we're going to communicate, send out communication when I identify if RCC can be on site first before that communication goes out. I understand.
I mean, have the information before making the determination. You know, we know you can't give something and take it away. So.
Okay, I just want clarity that may or may not be needed, but you said something earlier, you referenced, has there been an MOU or anything like that? And I just want to clarify what might be an implication behind that. An MOU for such work during the summer would not be needed because our negotiated agreement with Faculty Senate does not extend for summer school. That's a separate part of what we do here. It's outside of that agreement. So I just want to clarify that, not only for you, but perhaps anybody who's listening.
Yeah, no, that's why I asked the question though, right? Like I didn't recall any MOU saying that they would be remote.
That's correct.
So the expectation would be that they would be on site.
I also think what happened was the notice. When I say the notice, I mean the overall notice for remote summer school was sent out. And that we had not had a discussion about, are we gonna do something different for SPED than we're doing? So that discussion, we didn't do that. And I think that's part of the mixing information.
Yeah, I'm just disappointed. Board members, questions?
Yes, Sarah, I just want to add, I agree with your comments, or Sarah. You know, the one thing just in connecting the dots, because it was mentioned that, you know, yes, it was communicated to the board back in 19, that the building would be not available. At that time, there was no remote learning. At that time, so there was no expectation that there would be remote learning. So to connect those doesn't fit to me. That would have meant that either we would have had to cancel or find alternative means. And so to go from that situation to automatically remote is kind of the jump that doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I think part of that was due to, you're absolutely correct. There was no remote at that time. It was not. And so what would have happened in reality is if we could not have found a space, there was a high probability that we would not have been able to have summer school. Or we were Skyping during that time, wasn't coming from remote learning, but there would have not been an opportunity because they did look. We looked back in 2019 for locations in order to have summer school. So it wasn't put off until now. The fact that remote now does exist was a great opportunity for us to at least offer our students some type of learning opportunity.
Comments from anybody else?
I just want to point out what I tend to point out at every time we get into one of these conversations, is that we're still in the pandemic, right? And things are constantly changing, and we're getting updated on a regular basis on what's possible and what's not possible. And what we knew when we made that decision, because I do recall this entire conversation about the building not being available because of the construction. I completely recall that. So this is not news. And so I'm not, I just wanted to say that I appreciated the information that you shared tonight, Ms. Francois Blue, because what I'm hearing is that there is an effort to be made to ensure that whatever we can do as far as learning for our students this summer, we do. But I also want to point out that students have had an enormously hard year this year. Students, not to mention educators, but I just want to talk about the students for a second. And we continue to have conversations about learning loss. But what I would really caution us in our conversations is about learnings that have actually been gained by our students. And we've lived through a pandemic. So this isn't like a regular year and like all of a sudden, hey, our students didn't get to learn anything. First of all, that's not truth. Truth is, educators have worked very hard to ensure that students could have everything that they needed. And we've watched our administration pivot repeatedly to make sure that that happened. And as we transition now from where we've been to what we will be, it's just important to remember that this last year of school and those few months since March of 2019 or 2020 have not looked like what we thought school would look like. But education has happened. And so I want us to not negate, but also I'm appreciative of what you all are bringing so that we can do everything that we can to support our students in accomplishing their goals. And that's what we're here for. So I wanted to be appreciative. And I also just wanted to remind people that, like, us making comparisons to what's possible or what could have been, all of that is in my mind negated by the fact that we've been in a pandemic and things have constantly shifted over and over again. And our administration has done an amazing job of shifting with it, as well as our educators and especially our students. And we have heard repeatedly, thank goodness, from the student voice that comes to speak to us about what they've appreciated, what they haven't appreciated, what's been hard, what's worked, and what hasn't worked. So as we're keeping their voices centered and we're keeping their needs centered and foremost, I just wanted to acknowledge that that was what I was hearing tonight. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. If there are no other board comments, we are on to future agenda items. Anybody like to list some?
I do have a future agenda item, and it's actually a topic that we've discussed before. And I know that when we meet in the tri-board, we've started having discussions about data sharing. And I would love for us to revisit this idea because as an educator, what I know is being able to have certain information as we transition specifically in this time of the pandemic. Being able to have information as we transition from middle school to high school, from 90 to and 97 to 200, that piece is going to be really critical. So I would love for us to have bring that back up again about data sharing in that conversation.
That's really easy. Yeah, that's really easy to do. The claim committee, and Gina, you probably know more about this than I do, although I'm on the claim committee, so it makes me sound really terrible, but claim is actually hosting their event in the next couple of weeks. I have to get the exact date. But to talk in part about this very issue, because there's a bill winding its way through the legislature right now that would enable the data sharing that you're speaking of, which is sort of one of my bucket list items. I really want that done. So I think that we could probably coordinate with 97 and 90 to do a presentation to all the districts explaining sort of what the state of affairs is and where we're going next.
Thank you so much. That would be really useful.
Other future agenda items. All right. This has been a timely meeting, been an important one. We've gotten a ton done. We've got a new superintendent and we're thrilled. So let's go home early. And move to adjourn.
Second.
So moved. Second. Yeah.
Yes. All right. Thank you, everyone. Good work.
Bye.
Thank you.
Good night, everyone. Congrats, Greg.
Thank you. Thank you. We off?
It's over.